Hi, everybody. Are you ready? It's just before lunch, but I'm delighted to be today with the cool kids. So at my right, we have Umberto, who is managing Cosmoi, and Cosmoi is doing AI governance. Then we have Chris, which I'm not going to present the last name because we're going to give him Chris W for today. And Chris is a chief risk officer at Bunk, which is a neobank based in Amsterdam, which have a US passporting and deploying there. And he's going to talk to us about use cases and everything they do about AI. And last, we have Ben, who is working at CoreWeave. So CoreWeave is a neo-cloud, and they are, by design, building on AI, generative AI, everything around the cloud. So I'm delighted to have three outstanding panelists today to drive a 20-minute conversation about how do we build AI-native financial services. But before we kick off, when we started the preparation, we were like, it's not so much about the tools, it's not so much about the technology. It's really all about the adoption. So let's go about adoption. And let's start with you, Chris.
Thanks, Claire. It's great to be here, and you're absolutely right. We at Bunk, we are like a tech firm with a banking license, and we also are, we believe, the first AI-powered bank in Europe. And for that, you need technology, wonderful technology, which is developing very fast. But that's not enough. What you really need is the right culture and the right mindset to do this. So first of all, you need the right people. And as we know, a couple of years ago, we started having those social natives. Now we start having AI natives. So first what you need is you don't train people, you hire people who are AI natives, who have embraced AI and who are willing to implement this technology. Secondly, when we talk about training, I think it's very important to realize that this field is changing so fast that people need to be learning all the time. So someone who had like all the knowledge 2 years ago and who did not learn what happened over the last 2 years, I mean, would not be of very little value now. So Claire, I'm fully with you. It's a culture thing. It starts with tone at the top, and also it starts with having enthusiasts all over your organization embracing this technology.
Thanks. At the top, let's hire the right people. It's about culture, it's about talent, but let's go in governance. You know, adoption in governance, because I'm hearing about the regulation, AI Act, everything. So how do we make it, how do we flip it around, Umberto?
So in the last couple of years, I had the privilege to talk with many CIOs and AI leaders of the largest financial institutions in Europe. And what came up as the main concern that they have is not really how to implement a new use case, but is how to control the access to AI. They have so many use cases already running, and sometimes the AI leader is not even aware of all the use cases. So the focus right now is really how do I govern the access to AI, how do I control, how do I keep situational awareness about how much I'm spending with each use case, and also how do I enforce compliance across the board without slowing down the adoption. And that's really the concept of having a middleware to be able to implement all this governance is very important to expedite the adoption while keeping situational awareness and control on the compliance.
Interesting. So talent, governance as an enabler and not a blocker, but in the key priorities. And you, Ben, you provide cloud services. So who is pushing the adoption within the organization? Who are your key champions?
I think one of the things that you see, one of the things we experience is that the people who are really looking for those cloud services are those people who you brought into the organization. You bring the right people in, you bring the right people in and you govern them correctly. But then actually these are usually AI natives. These are people who have grown up with the technology. So what you need to do is you need to govern them, you need to bring them in, and then you need to be brave with them. You have to allow them and trust them that what they're doing, they understand, and they can do it, but in a controlled and sensible manner. And if you get the right people and you get the right governance, you then need to give them the right infrastructure, give them the correct infrastructure, the most powerful infrastructure, the infrastructure that's going to allow them to have the most impact on your organization. And if you put those three things together, you can start to really drive outcomes in your organization.
But that sounds a bit easy. So do we need to be brave? How you will characterize your stakeholder? How are they pushing this mindset within the organization?
I think one way that you're really pushing that mindset is by enabling these people and giving them allowing them to know that from the top of your organization, it's coming right from the top that people are looking to really see this being driven out of the organization. People understanding that while there may be old legacy ways of doing things, if you continue to operate in the old and legacy way, then you're not going to progress. And you need to be able to give them that enablement and that courage and let them know that we back these individuals to bring the AI out and give them that real opportunity to transform everyone's business.
Thanks. I think it's very interesting because the common thread between the three of you is really that adopting AI is not so much about the technology. It's really around the mindset, how is it top of mind, leading from the top and everything. But we also wanted you to take something home. So we want to talk about the use cases. We want to talk about how do you make it happen. And so we talk with you, Umberto. We'll start with you, but you touch on these use cases. So what are the most outstanding use cases you see in governance?
So actually the most challenging from a governance perspective and compliance perspective is also the easiest and the most common one, and is the generic chatbot for all the company's employees. So typically the first step of a company is I want to provide an enterprise, a company-wide ChatGPT, very generic for my employee productivity. That can be very complex from an AI Act compliance perspective, because if it's a generic chatbot, one day what the employee is doing might be in compliance with the AI Act, and the second day might be do something that is in violation of the AI Act. And so that's why we, for example, implemented an AI Act compliance guardrail that keeps track of the conversations in real time and understand the intent of the user, and will block the user if he's trying to do something in violation with the AI Act, because you cannot really determine if the use case is in compliance ahead of time, because it's really dependent on what the user is doing.
And I'm going to spice it up a little bit. When we were preparing, you were talking about another use case around prompt injection, and how do we prevent prompt injection? So first you may have to explain what it is, and then how do we prevent that?
So prompt injection is the attempt of the user to do something that the model is not allowed to do and go around the guardrail. And there is a very interesting example. 10 days ago, Anthropic disclosed that there was an actor who was able to build an attack using their model and attacking a bunch of American companies. And that was a perfect example of using the AI in the wrong way and being able actually to go around those guardrails.
That sounds very scary. So I'm going to ask the Chief Risk Officer, when you hear that, can we do prompt injection? How do you prevent it? What are your key use cases?
Well, going back to Bunk, indeed, we have like over 100 use cases. And so when you asked me to share a few, I thought indeed, the first one, banking, is all about trust. It's about safety, it's about security. So the first use case I want to share is one in fraud prevention. And the second one is going to be one in making the user experience more pleasant, because that's what the NeoOne wants to do. So first, we were already using AI before anybody mentioned generative AI. We were already doing transaction monitoring with old-fashioned machine learning. And we had to fight in court for the right to use machine learning in our transaction monitoring. I think at the moment it's generally accepted that to fight financial crime, you have to use AI. With AI, you can't do it anymore. AI is adaptive. AI can pick up subtle signals that couldn't be picked up before. So I think that's a very important use case for us. It's fighting financial crime, it's keeping fraudsters out, it's protecting our users. A second one, which I would like to mention, is we were the first bank globally to use AI for speech-to-speech, like in-speech translation. Because if you have a problem, you call the help desk, and we want to be able to support our users in more than 35 languages. But we don't have always people online who speak those languages. So what we did is we are using AI to do that. And I already mentioned a bit the mindset that you need to adopt AI. And I mentioned the importance of experimenting and so on. And a funny anecdote, to get this working, we had our engineers who were building this tool speak to each other through the tool for over a week until it met their standards. So we would be sure it also meets our user standard.
Wow, so we're like, how do we protect the system? You know, your use cases in financial monitoring, but also speech to text. And I think you also build a platform within Bunq, no?
Indeed, the speech-to-speech happens on our in-house built Fin platform. We call it Fin. It's our in-house AI platform. And I think we are one of the few, if not the only one, to really integrate AI fully in our banking backend. So it's fully integrated in our backend, which we built ourselves. Yeah.
I want to ask so many questions. I mean, like, there is one neobank in Europe which is running with a full integrated AI and GenAI platform that have many use cases, including speech to text, and you rolled out by training and having all your engineers using it for a week. That's just outstanding. But Ben, do we have more than Bunq, more than Cosmo?
I think one thing that we see, so we have a number of financial institutions that are using our infrastructure and using our software stack. And one of the interesting things, you look across that population, different people are doing different things, and that's obviously the great part of it. On one extent, you see organizations, financial institutions who are using it in the front office capacity, where you have the AI both generating the investment thesis, then executing the transactions, clearing the transactions, managing the transactions, reporting the transactions, all without any real input from the human being. The human being is sitting there on that fund, overseeing the models and making sure that it's getting the outcomes it's expecting and tweaking those models. And that's, I think, one thing which is a very exciting use case that you're increasingly seeing in some of the smaller financial shops. Now, that can happen in it's a relatively small shops. It's a very exciting opportunity. But at the same time, when you start to look at some of the bigger organizations, you know, these shops are able, because they're small and nimble, to run their guardrails and understand their risk management. Clearly, when you get to a bigger organization, you're in a different scale. But one thing we're also seeing is that those customers of ours which are coming and buying the level of compute from us to run these workloads, one thing is clear is from when we see those organizations, they're not using this and retiring it. They're using it and continuing to come back, to continue to buy more. And whilst we may not have a huge level of detail as to the precise workloads they're running due to the confidential nature of their business, what we are seeing is the reinvestment from those customers because it's such a key part and a successful part of their strategies.
Wow. So thanks for sharing all your use cases, and I'm sure there is many more. We've covered adoption, we've covered use cases. We are going to the end of the panel. I think when I was talking with these three gentlemen, I was like, you know, it feels very advanced. It feels very advanced compared to other environments where I work on a day-to-day, and you may feel the same. And I was just like, can you please share your do and don'ts in this journey? What should we be doing, and what should we not be doing if we are starting in different levels than where you are? Maybe we can start with you, Ben.
Sure, I think I said at the beginning there's the cultural piece of being brave and enabling people, and I think that is a really fundamental thing. Things will break, things will go wrong, you've got to catch them. That's why you have the governance layer, that's why you have the risk layer. But be brave and empower people to do things. I think there's a really important thing whereby you need to use the right tool for the job. So that's really important. You need the tool for the job that's going to make sure you can observe what's going on in these models, you can measure them, you can manage them, you can check it's repeatable, you can go back and you can audit them if you need to, so there's a real clarity there. And you also, as with all technology projects, you need to work in short cycles, short sprints. You're working on an hourly basis, you're not working on daily and weekly basis. If you're going to be doing the sort of stuff I've talked about, it's got to be done fast. And I think that if you really want to look at some of the don'ts, I think you need just to, don't get stuck in your incumbent mentalities. Don't allow people to say, no, don't do it because we haven't done it before. It's all those cultural items which are really important, but you need to do it. And to go to Umberto's point, you need to do it with the right guardrails. This is not risk-taking for fun. This is risk-taking within guardrails where you understand, but you can observe, you can see it, and make sure that everything is done in a controlled fashion, but embracing the technology.
Thanks for sharing, Chris.
I think I'm very much aligned with what Ben is saying and what Umberto said before. I think the first to do for me would be, it's like swimming, right? To learn to swim, you have to jump. I'm sure everybody here is convinced, but just get started. And you know what I say, how do you eat an elephant? Bit by bit. Start small, experiment, be agile. Second step is put the guardrails in place, put the governance environment in place, and for regulated industries, take your regulator on your journey. And the last thing I would like to say from a neobank perspective is keep the user in mind. If anything you do is not useful to your user, there must be a better use case. So the 3 don'ts then from me, and I fully agree with Ben. First, don't expect perfection. I work in a regulated environment and industry where people try to prepare everything, only launch a product when it's perfect. It's not going to happen in AI. Don't expect perfection. Second, don't be afraid to jump. There will be people who say, oh, but it hallucinates, or, oh, where's our data? Those are things you should consider. That's why you put guardrails in place, but they shouldn't scare you. Those are problems to address, problems for which there are solutions. And the last and most fundamental thing I would like to say is AI is not a sideshow. Don't look at your existing processes and say, oh, there is a little step here and I can use some AI in that step. AI is a way to rethink and redesign your processes. And it's not going to go away. It will redesign how we work over the years to come.
Thank you, Umberto.
So I would say don't be scared off by the cost of this large language model, but the cost of the token. Because the big benefits that financial institutions have is they have scale. And once you're going to be moving from a pilot phase to a production phase, you will have the opportunity to move your use case from a very large and very expensive large language model that requires a lot of GPU to a much smaller model that you can fine-tune specifically for your use case. And that the cost will go down by 2 orders of magnitudes. So don't get scared by the initial cost of the token for the big model, and don't only focus on large models. Because very specific use cases can be done with very specific models that can be much, much smaller, much more cost effective, much more sustainable also from an environmental perspective.
Wow, thank you for sharing. We had a full tour between adoption, use cases, do and don'ts. We really rely on you to go and transform financial services with AI. Thank you very much.